I wish it would have been me. There's no unity there. Something's wrong there. And it's something that needs to be fixed. And so then God I said, deal with me now. So he began to remind me of a time where I said, okay, God, I want to get to another level in you. So I'm going to do everything that I'm supposed to do. I'm going to fast. I'm going to pray. Everything that I'm supposed to do, I'm going to do it. But for some reason, I looked around and everybody was being used but me. And I didn't understand why until he checked me. And he said, the reason why you're not getting where you want to be is because your mindset is wrong. And if I put you in a place where you want to be now, you're going to think it's more about you and less about me. And so when he reminded me of that, I said, okay, God, I told you to deal with me. And so I just want you to make sure that my mindset is right. And then he brought me during this week to Romans. I didn't know where to Romans I was going, but I knew I was going to Romans. And when I got to Romans, he said, go to chapter 12. And I went straight to chapter 12. And when I got there, I went to verse 3, and it says, for I say through the grace given unto me, to every man among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, according as God has dealt to every man the measure of faith. And then I skipped down to verse 16, and he says, be of the same mind one toward another. Mind not high things, but condescend to men of low estate. Be not wise in your own hearts. But then something said, go back to verse 3 and read it again. For I say through the grace given unto me, to every man among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think. Watch your mindset. Watch your mindset. And so then I said, God, I need more though. I need you to give me a little bit more. And I woke up one morning, and I kid you not, before I got on my knees, before I picked up my phone to see what text messages was coming through, he said, Cain and Abel. And I said, Cain and Abel, God, what about Cain and Abel? And I went straight to my Bible, and I looked, and I began to read Genesis chapter 4, verses 3 to 8. And when I got there, it says, and in the process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. And Abel he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering. But unto Cain and to his offering he had no respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. And the Lord said unto Cain, why art thou wroth, and why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shall not thou be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. And Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. And we know the story. But then I began to wonder, what can have a man so angry over something like this that he would go and kill his brother? Not talk to him and argue, but literally kill his own brother. And so I began to wonder, well, then there had to be something already wrong with Cain. He had already had a mindset that maybe he was better. What he was offering would be better. He already was struggling with a spirit of pride, a spirit of jealousy. Something must have been already struggling in there for you to get that angry that you're going to kill your own brother. And so it was at that point when God said, be careful of committing spiritual homicide. Now, we may not be Cain, and we might not go and physically kill our sister, but your words, life and death being in the power of the tongue, we throw that around a lot. We throw it around a lot, but there is death in the words that you speak against your sister. There's death in that. When you speak to other people about your sister, because you can say, well, I didn't say it directly to Sister Stewart, but I said it to Sister Melissa about Sister Stewart. That tells you right there, not only are you committing a problem, you're making sure that you're making a problem, but you're attempting murder. You might not be killing the person exactly, but it's attempted murder because you're attempting to kill her by talking to somebody else, knowing that there's a good chance that we're ladies, so we like to talk. You're going to go tell her, you're going to tell her, and some way around it'll get back to her, and it'll attempt to kill her. Why, God, is she being able? Oh, Sister Melissa, why does she get to speak? Why does she get to do everything? What's so special about her? Or it can be another way of, my calling is higher than her. What makes her think that she's better than me? What God has given me is way more important. There's something wrong in the mindset. There's something that should not be there. So watch what you say. Watch what you think. And there's a need to be humble. There's a need to be humble. You can't walk around tooting your own horn. Oh, I'm better. I'm bigger. I'm pastor's wife. I'm minister so-and-so wife. I'm head of this. I'm head. You cannot walk around with that title over your head, because it'll get you in some trouble. It'll get you in some trouble. God didn't give it to you for you to go around and tell everybody. Because if you're truly walking the way you're supposed to walk, nobody would have to, people will just know that's a child of God. God must be using that person because there's something different about them. You don't have to go around and tell everybody. Watch what you say and watch your mindset. Being humble. Absence of pride. Absence, not there. No pride at all. No arrogance. No arrogance at all. It should not be there. If you're humble, then it should not be in you. Arrogance should not be in you. You can be proud, but there's something about being overly proud. You can tell the difference. And so I kept meditating on this, and for some reason God said, go to Daniel. And I went to Daniel and I said, okay, now where am I going to go? Go to chapter 5. And I said, okay. And I got to chapter 5 and I began to read a story. And it's about a king named King Belshazzar. And King Belshazzar decided he was going to have a banquet. And he invited his nobles and his wives and his concubines. And during the banquet, he sent somebody to go get goblets. That's something that you drink out of. But these are goblets that his father stole from a temple in Jerusalem. And so they go and get it, and they begin to drink out of it. And the Bible says that they begin to praise the God of gold and silver and be merry. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, just a hand. Imagine us being here. No body, no physical body, but a hand comes out of nowhere, and it begins to just write. It begins to write. Can you imagine being here and a hand just appears and begins to write? And so he didn't quite know what it was. He didn't understand. And they called for Daniel. And I'm summarizing. They called for Daniel, and Daniel came, and he began to speak to him. And he began to say in verse 18, O thou king, the most high God gave Nebuchadnezzar thy father a kingdom, and majesty and glory and honor. And for the majesty that he gave him, all people, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him, whom he would slew, and whom he kept alive, and whom he set up, and whom he would put down. But when his heart was lifted up and his mind hardened in pride, he was deposed from his kingly throne, and they took his glory from him. And he was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the beast, and his dwelling was wild like the wild asses. They fed him with grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till he knew that the Most High God ruled in the kingdom of men, and that he appointed over it whomsoever he will. And thou his son, O Belshazzar, has not humbled thine heart, though thou knewest all this. Belshazzar was beginning to walk in the way of his own father. His same father that God gave he gave him a mind of an animal. It was getting too much to him. He was abusing his position. And when you abuse your position, the same way God gave it to you is the same way he can take it away. Job said he gives and he takes away. So he can give it to you, but just as fast as you got it, it's just as fast as you can lose it. And so tonight, I'm fast. I'm quick with it tonight. Tonight, I just really want to say that whether you're behind a pulpit, whether you're the head of a department, understand that we must be humble. We must be humble. Humble. Humility must be in a child of God. You must be humble. Because if it's not there, something's lacking and you just need it. I mean, even if you got to go to the altar and bawl for humility, get it. We were made in his image and his likeness. God will not tell us to be humble if he wasn't humble. So be humble. Be humble in everything that you do, whether you're inside of church, because it doesn't go for just inside of church. It doesn't go just for be humble because you're the preacher. Be humble on the job. Be humble in school. If you're the manager, be humble. Don't abuse your position. If you're the smartest one in class, don't abuse that. Because God can take that mind, that smart mind that you have, He can take it right away from you. Everything that He gives us is a gift. Here, this is a gift. But the thing about it is, as much as I'm giving it to you, it doesn't really belong to you. I can take it back. I can do what I want because I am God. I gave it to you. I give and I take away. Be careful of what you do with what God gives you. Be careful of your mindset. And so tonight I just want to say, love one another. Love one another. We say we're sisters globally united. But love one another. Really be united. Really be together. Because we can talk about it as much as we want, but if your actions are not showing united, then all of this is just, we're just coming here to eat and have a good time. But there's something about the reason why it was called Sisters Globally United. There needs to be a unity here. And it's not just, oh, Sister Debbie's my best friend, so we have unity. No, you need to go over to Sister Carone and Sister Terry Ann and Sister Gray and find some unity there. It has to be there. There needs to be unity in the church of God. There has to be unity. We all are one. Not 1 and 2, not 1.5, 1. In our bodies, and the Bible speaks of that. If there's one part of our body that's working not to its full potential, it can definitely affect the rest of our bodies. It can definitely affect the rest of everything else that's going on in our body. If one part is not the way it should be. So whether you're in China, or whether you're in Jamaica, or whether you're in Italy, we should all be making sure that our part, our area, is up to par. Because if China begins to fall, we shouldn't have Jamaica saying, well, that's unfortunate for you, but I'm still up here. You know, you're down there, you're gonna, no. Because then unity is not there. And for something to work in unity, every part needs to work together. Every part needs to work together. So if you're cooking or you're setting up, there should not be any conflict. Because there needs to be a unity for everything to work the way it's supposed to work. And remember that everything that you do, it's to the glory of God. It's not to say, well, wow, she did a good job. Don't do it to get glory, because it does not belong to you. Glory does not belong to you. It belongs to God. It belongs to God. So if you see your sister falling, if you see something not right, and you don't go with an attitude, you go with humility. You go with humility, and you go with some humbleness inside of you, and you say what you need to say instead of going to so and so and committing that spiritual homicide that is so deadly with your mouth. You do yourself a favor. Get to the altar. Get to your knees. Pray for somebody before you go around and start talking. Because your mouth will get you in trouble. And little do you know, your mouth can cause death. Life and death? No, death can happen. You can drive somebody out of church with your tongue. With your tongue. So instead of breaking down, learn to build up. Learn to build up. Just learn to build up. And so I leave you with that tonight. I leave you with that tonight. Be careful of committing spiritual homicide. And understand that your position does not give you automatic favor. Bless the Lord in Jesus.